this in kind of a different way. Not so much a presentation, but something more of like a drill that I would go through with everybody. Basically, like at my job at 10 o'clock every day, we meet up in the boardroom and we do our drills that we're assigned for the month. We get assigned anything between like trauma, Denver drill, anything of that nature that we can come in contact with at our job. So I just wanted to make this more of an interactive thing, get feedback from the audience as I go through this, so I'll be asking questions and stuff like that, just to kind of get you guys engaged and to go through this. So to start out with, some of the objectives for this presentation or drill are going to be thinking about things that we would not normally see on a daily basis going to a trauma. We don't always talk about the GCS scale. We don't always talk about patient assessment. We don't always go into detail in the gray areas of EMS, which there are a lot. So having like an open discussion on this is going to make it a lot easier of a presentation, I think. To start out, we have the patient assessment. It's not showing up as good as I hope, but I used real photos from our photo log to kind of enhance it for the people that I was working with, but it could be used in this application too. So I want to start out with patient assessment. Some of the things that we think about when we're headed to a call are always the safety of ourselves. When we think about trauma, I mean, what are some of the things that pop into your mind when you think about trauma?
As far as self-safety?
Yeah. Or just going to a trauma scene.
What the particular trauma is, whether it's gunshot wound or some type of assault type of trauma versus motor vehicle accident.
Yeah. So we go to a gunshot wound. Our main concern is ourselves, getting police on scene. They're already dispatched usually. So we need to think about staging and talking to our crew, make sure everybody's on the same page, staying back away from that scene. If we're going to the scene of a car wreck, everybody has to be on the same page. It doesn't mean, I'm in the ambulance, you're in the fire truck. You both have different roles. So the ambulance is looking for a place of egress, a safe place to pull into a parking lot if they can, or just staging on the road, right next to the patient, trying to find a safe place to be where they can get out. The fire engine following you up, making sure that they're blocking the patient, blocking traffic, not going to cause you any trouble trying to get out. Basically just setting up the scene for a safe place to be. And then also you have police on the scene that they can stage and do all that. So you reach your patient. Our primary assessment is going to be our biggest thing. What do we look at when we come up to a patient? What's the first thing that we want to assess?
Mental status.
He's safe. Yeah. So if our patient isn't breathing, they look like they've been hit in the mouth or something, what are some things that we can do to improve that right away? We don't want to compromise C-spine, right? Or do anything like that. We can use suction. We can try to clear their airway if that's something that we need to do. Next, we want to assess the breathing. Is our patient breathing agonally? Is our patient breathing at all? Or are they at an increased rate? Because breathing can show us tons of different aspects of what's going on with that patient. Whether they have some type of brain injury or something else going on that can affect their breathing. Next is circulation. Not only is it circulation, it's does this body still hold blood? You're coming up to the scene looking to see if you see any blood on the ground. Thinking about internal hemorrhage, things of that nature. Is there anything else that comes to mind when you're thinking about circulation? Checking pulses, just things like that. The color of the person's skin. We want to make sure they're not too pale. Make sure that they're pink, warm, dry. That's what we're looking for. They could show neurological issues, if they're all sweaty or if they're in severe pain, and can actually tell you that because something's happened to their spine. Who in here can recite the GCS?
4, 5, 6.
So this is something that I've struggled with coming in. You know, obviously we have ESO, where we can just punch it in, and it tells us a GCS. Well, so you don't look at that. You walk into the room, the doctor's standing there. It's all intimidating. You have all the people in there waiting for you to give a report, and he asks you what the GCS is, what their baseline is. You're like, oh, okay, 13. He's like, maybe like 10. So it's important stuff to know, and when we're in a critical situation, it's going to be much, much harder to remember that. So we'll touch on GCS as we go through this. So the next part is transport. And basically this is right off the NREMT website. This is the sheet that we all went through when we got our certs. Is everybody in here a paramedic? Yeah? Not back there?
It was.
Lucky man. Got to drop down. Yeah. So, do we transport this patient? Are they critical enough, or do we need to stay on scene? It's all about awareness, making sure your ABCs are good, checking their GCS. You know, sometimes we go in car wrecks and the patient doesn't even want to be transported because they're got a GCS of 15. They're totally fine. They might have a little bit of pain from the seatbelt or something, but you need to make that transport decision because you're clogging up traffic and you're out there trying to make a decision. You know, you just got to make that decision. And I found that that comes with experience, obviously, but getting to that medic is kind of your safe place, and that's an easier place to go rather than working on your patient on the side of the road, unless it's absolutely necessary. So make that transport decision as fast as you can. If you are going to transport them, then you're going to be doing vitals and looking at, you know, getting a refusal and stuff like that. But we're talking about trauma. So once you get in the back, you want to get your baseline set of vitals. What would you say somebody that's hypotensive would be at?
Below
90? 90 systolic or 80?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything below 80, you can't actually perfuse vital organs very well. So you definitely want to keep your patient in that 90 mark. What's a warning sign for respirations?
Less than 10 or above 30.
Yeah, that's great. What about pulse rate? I mean, people are going to be worked up. So I would say if you're seeing somebody that's bradycardic after a trauma, that's really, really bad. If you see somebody that's like 120 or so, that's pretty normal. But if you're jumping up to 160 or higher, you might be thinking about maybe blood loss. You're definitely not using your pump effectively. So you're not actually perfusing those vital organs very well. So you need to figure out how to reverse that or help that patient, whichever way they need. So now we get down to our actual physical assessment. People always say that trauma is a naked sport, which I kind of agree with, but there's no reason you need to take off some girl's underwear, I don't feel like, unless it's completely necessary. So, expose the legs. I always use trauma shears. Cut all the way up, expose all that, and then you can remove the shirt and everything. I would say, if it is a female, leave the bra unless it's completely necessary. There's no point in doing that. When you're looking at so that's initially, before you actually start your evaluation. When you're looking at your head, ears, eyes, neck, and throat, what are some telling signs? Because the face can tell you a whole lot about a trauma. Does anybody have any idea what we could see that could give us some severe warning signs?
Muscular use.
Muscular use?
Traction.
So just in the head, ears, eyes, nose, throat right now.
Pupillary always.
What's that?
When your eyes are different. Pupils are
So some aniscoria, so your pupils are a different size. That could show that you have a hemorrhage on one side of your brain rather than the other. Upward gaze is another one. Usually your eyes go towards whatever the side the hemorrhage is on. So be aware of that. Pinpoint pupils. that can lead you to believe that there's some type of narcotic on board, or there's some reason that this person actually had a car wreck, or the trauma occurred in some other way. Not to say that all trauma is, vehicle related. So, what about your ears? There. What's that?
Trim your CSF.
Yep, CSF coming from your ears. One way to test that, gauze, dabble a little of it onto the gauze, make sure it's not bloody. You're going to get like a clear fluid coming out of the ears. What's a sign of a severe skull fracture?
Basal look like raccoon eyes or.
Yep, raccoon eyes or battle sign. Right behind the ears. That'll show usually